Back in 1990, the story of Kimberly Bergalis stunned the nation. She was the first of 6 Florida dental patients who said that their dentist had infected them with the AIDS virus. The dentist died of AIDS. Kimberly died, as have 2 of the other patients. All of the patients, claiming they couldn't have gotten AIDS any other way, sued the dentist, his estate, and his insurance companies. And they've collected so far an estimated $10 million in out-of-court settlements. The case made a lot of us worry about going to our own dentists, and it made us wonder about how it could happen. Concerns like these helped launch a national campaign to test all healthcare workers for AIDS, with Kimberly Bergalis making an emotional plea before Congress.
I did nothing wrong, yet I'm being made to suffer like this. My life has been taken away. Please enact legislation so that no other patient or health care provider will have to go through the hell that I have.
At that time, I was the chief professional advisor for the largest dental and medical catalog supply company in the world, Henry Schein, Inc. Early in my career, I published books and tapes using my knowledge of the behavioral sciences, including the Overcoming Your Fear of the Dentist program, and for this company, Dentistry in the Age of AIDS. By then, I had published dozens of scientific articles. Because of this case and my background, the company sent me on a lecture circuit between 1990 and 93, when I personally trained nearly 30,000 healthcare professionals in the psychology and clinical practices of infection control. But the government and my employer did not like my research. The controversy I created by publishing reports that conflicted with what officials were saying, based on my use of the FBI's official methods and materials, resulted in my corporate dismissal and blacklisting from lecture circuits of all dental and medical associations. Because of this, you might think I have an axe to grind, or that I'm biased against the government. Some people, especially health officials, dismiss my credibility because I began my career as a dentist, even though I received advanced degrees, one from Harvard University in public health, behavioral science, and 2 more doctorates since then. In short, I have been character assassinated sufficiently to say it is easy to assassinate a messenger. It is a lot harder for intelligent people to dismiss an honest, well-documented message. Hello, I'm Dr. Leonard Horowitz. What you are about to watch is a documentary critical of the roles national leaders, trusted medical doctors, and the Central Intelligence Agency have played in advancing the war on cancer, the war on AIDS, and now the war on bioterrorism. This controversial program examines the wars in which we have invested from an alternative perspective. The purpose of this film is to help explain how and why we have technologically advanced yet declined in health, freedoms, and quality of life. Currently showing on televisions around the world via satellite is the United States Department of Health and Human Services History of Bioterrorism. This program, featured in a new 24-hour preparedness programming network, was co-produced with the Department of Homeland Security, with the CIA's involvement. It is said to be an educational encouragement to prepare you and your family for threatened, virtually impending catastrophes, especially bioterrorist and nuclear attacks. The network's featured documentary provides the opportunity to critically examine whether or not officials representing our government are telling us enough of the truth to make informed choices impacting life or death. Many critical choices now need to be made. The government explains this for your health and safety. Without honest information, your decisions might literally kill you or your loved ones. That's why this program is so important. This documentary provides honest messages, proven with visible documents, reflecting the most disturbing political and scientific history ever recorded. Controversial as this is, it is also sufficient for your needs to gain a balanced view that government officials are not providing, and be well informed and thereby empowered to make several life-saving decisions that health officials are now encouraging you to make.
There was a turtle by the name of Bert, and the turtle was very alert. When danger threatened him, he never got hurt. He knew just what to do. He ducked and covered, ducked and covered. He did what we all must learn to do. You and you and you and you, duck and cover.
Be sure and remember what Bert the Turtle just did, friends, because every one of us must remember to do the same thing. That's what this film is all about. Duck and cover. This is an official civil defense film produced in cooperation with the Federal Civil Defense Administration and in consultation with the Safety Commission of the National Education Association.
If you are my age, you might recall during the 1950s and early 60s, school children throughout America were required to brace themselves beneath their desks at schools in defense of a Cold War nuclear weapons attack. I remember as a child how completely absurd this was in the event a nuclear bomb were to explode within 100 miles of my classroom, as I was shown repeatedly the devastating effects relayed by television and movie theater newsreels. The waves of destruction spread hundreds of miles around Ground Zero, leaving nothing but ashes and debris. Only recently did I learn that those civil defense procedures were generated by nuclear weapons industry leaders in collaboration with our elected officials, who pledged this defense of our nation was required to maintain the world's balance of powers, economic stability, and military might.
First, you'll have to know what happens when an atomic bomb explodes. You will know when it comes. We hope it never comes, but we must get ready. It looks something like this. There is a bright flash, brighter than the sun, brighter than anything you've ever seen. If you were not ready and did not know what to do, it could hurt you in different ways. It could knock you down hard or throw you against a tree or a wall. It is such a big explosion, it can smash in buildings and knock signboards over and break windows all over town. But if you duck and cover like Bert, you will be much safer.
This documentary examines the government's latest efforts to get you to duck and cover. It exposes the CIA and puppet politicians operating as prostitutes for multinational corporate criminals, behind whose policies for preparedness lies genocide.
Coming up next, discover how bioterrorism has been used historically and in the present on History of Bioterrorism. And actor Andre Braugher looks back at the biggest flu epidemic in history on Standing in the Safety Zone. Baltimore remembers the 1918 flu epidemic. And what every family needs to know about potential flu pandemic on Keeping Our Children Safe and Secure, Pandemic Flu, and Emergency Safety Preparedness. Coming up on HHS Network.
As you are about to learn, the real bioterrorists produce illegitimate programming called propaganda for profit. The real villains are those who spread fear and loathing for financial gain, power, and control.
Come to a place that's new and unique, a place of health, well-being, and preparedness, where connection leads to inspiration and empowerment. Come to the HHS. Come to the HHS. Come to the HHS.
To the extent that populations are being increasingly dependent, virtually enslaved, to drugs, called drug dependencies, the politics, policies, and profiteering of pharmaceutical firms and those who run them is genocidal. Most people realize that wars of any kind make money for arms dealers, industry manufacturers, and stocks, bonds, and futures investors. The wars against infectious diseases and cancers is no different. The war on cancer, the war on AIDS, the battle against breast and prostate malignancies, colon cancers, children's tumors, diabetes, and heart diseases is no different. Many industries and officials thrive off of this sickness. Could all of these declared wars, including the war on terrorism and medically frightening bioterrorism, be part of an economic and political ploy by inside traders or un-American traitors, wielding the mass media for deception? Let's see. In 1963, as the plot to assassinate President John F. Kennedy was being hatched, a global policy think tank met at Iron Mountain near Hudson, New York, to discuss the possibilities for economic sustainability in a world without war. You may have heard it said that money makes the world go round. Well, most intelligent people knew at that time that war economies kept bankers and businessmen most profitable. So the big question asked and answered in the report from Iron Mountain on the desirability and possibility of peace regarded the possibility of transitioning into the 21st century, keeping growing populations manageable and large corporations in business. The participants at Iron Mountain considered the functions of war as necessary for political, economic, and social progress. The functions of war, they wrote, are, quote, essential to the survival of social systems we know today, end quote. Under political requirements, the report stated, a viable political substitute for war must posit a generalized external menace to each society of a nature and degree sufficient to require the organization and acceptance of political authority. In other words, a form of controlled life with threats other than large-scale devastating wars was considered. A way to control populations without destroying expensive infrastructures, roads, utilities, and real estate, as in past world wars. This report provided economic substitutes for war and suggested developing a comprehensive social welfare program and a giant open-ended space research program, both of which we have today. Political substitutes for war included, quote, an omnipresent, virtually omnipotent international police force, end quote. The current global war on terrorism assures this. And fictitious alternate enemies, about which this documentary speaks, is evident in today's focus on terrorism. But who are the deadliest terrorists, really? Do contemporary terrorists seek social control through a, quote, modern, sophisticated form of slavery? Ecological bioterrorism and human genetic destruction was also recommended by the report from Iron Mountain think tank. They suggested a, quote, comprehensive program of applied eugenics, end quote. That means genetically culling and killing perceived